The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, is an organization of countries in Southeast Asia established in 1967. ASEAN has 10 member states: Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, People's Democratic Republic of Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Southeast Asia is a region which occupies only 3% of the Earth's surface, yet home to almost 20% of all species assessed by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, including globally significant terrestrial and marine biodiversity. The region harbors several major ecosystems which support close to 600 million lives. The Mekong River, which stretches to about 4,200 kilometers in length across 5 ASEAN member states of Cambodia, People's Democratic Republic of Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam, all the way to the Yunnan province of China, provides natural resources to over 250 million people. The Coral Triangle, which encompasses 6 Indo-Pacific countries of Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and Timor-Leste, harbors over 600 coral species, 1,300 reef-associated fish species, and supports the livelihood of over 120 million people. The island of Borneo, the third largest island in the world, is also one of the most important centers of biodiversity on Earth, with an estimated 15,000 plant species, 6,000 of which are endemic. Tree species diversity is about 1,175 species, 155 of which are dipterocarp tree species. The island still has thousands of plant and animal species still waiting to be discovered. Southeast Asia's rich biodiversity is diminishing at an unprecedented rate due to several drivers of change: habitat change, climate change, deforestation, invasive alien species, overexploitation, pollution, and poverty. The two major pressures which contribute the most to habitat change are sedimentation and deforestation. The need for forest products such as timber and fuel wood, as well as conversion of forests for agriculture and industry, has driven the forests of the region into critical condition. The fourth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Working Group showed clear evidence of climate change. Climate change will exacerbate the many factors that are already endangering biodiversity in Southeast Asia. These factors compound one another. Climate change exacerbates poverty, accelerates biodiversity loss, and disrupts ecosystems' resilience. Poverty sequentially compels the poor to exploit the environment unsustainably. Degraded environment, in return, intensifies poverty and hastens climate change. Invasive alien species are plants, animals, or microorganisms that have been introduced to areas outside their natural distribution. Highly adaptive behaviors such as rapid growth, high dispersal, large reproductive capacity, and broad environmental tolerance enable invasive alien species to outcompete and displace an area's native species. Many invasive alien species compete or prey upon native species and severely upset the ecological balance of a particular area. The ASEAN region is a prime target for the lucrative multi-billion-dollar global illegal wildlife trade, where almost all wild species, including illegally cut timber, birds, reptiles, and mammals, are traded. The current human lifestyle and consumption patterns are now, more than ever, critically incompatible with sustaining the world's remaining natural flora and fauna. Unless serious modifications on consumption patterns are made, the degradation of wildlife will gather momentum and render wildlife extinction as inevitable. Pollution loading from nutrients poses an imminent threat to terrestrial inland water and coastal ecosystems. This holds true in the ASEAN region, where agriculture is a key economic sector and farming practices have moved towards intensification of food production. High pollution in agricultural runoff results to increased frequency of algal bloom and red tide occurrences. These are manifestations of ecological imbalances. Poverty leads to unsustainable pressures on nature and its biological resources. Around 1.3 billion people live in conditions of extreme poverty, generally in areas of high biodiversity, who depend on biodiversity for food, health, and livelihood. These factors are main drivers of biodiversity loss in the ASEAN region. Biodiversity serves as indicators of the health of ecosystems. The same ecosystems which provide food, clean air, drinking water, building materials, clothes, fuel, and medicine. The same ecosystems which sustain human life. The ASEAN Heritage Parks Program is ASEAN's flagship biodiversity conservation initiative. The ASEAN Heritage Parks are protected areas of high conservation importance, encompassing a complete spectrum of representative ecosystems and species of the ASEAN region. Today, there are 32 ASEAN Heritage Parks in 10 ASEAN member states. The Heart of Borneo is a trans-boundary initiative involving Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei Darussalam to conserve some of the last remaining frontier forests in Southeast Asia. The Coral Triangle Initiative on Coral Reefs, Fisheries, and Food Security seeks to address threats to the marine, coastal, and small island ecosystems within the Coral Triangle region through collaborative action and multi-stakeholder participation of the 6 countries within the Coral Triangle. The ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, or ACB, is ASEAN's response to the challenge of biodiversity loss. Established in April 2005, ACB is an intergovernmental regional center that facilitates cooperation and coordination among the 10 ASEAN member states, and with relevant national, regional, and international organizations engaged in biodiversity conservation. Aside from flagship programs, the ASEAN through ACB has also implemented major initiatives such as biodiversity and climate change, promotion of the economics of ecosystems and biodiversity, an international initiative to draw attention to the global economic benefits of biodiversity, capacity building for access and benefits sharing and other areas, biodiversity information sharing and management as platform for sharing species and protected area data for sound planning and decision-making in the region, public and leadership awareness of the values of biodiversity. The coverage of protected areas has been increasing throughout the region. However, there is a need to focus on enhancing management effectiveness in these areas. There are emerging concerns with the declining trends in the extent of biomes, ecosystems, and habitats, which result in the further decrease in abundance and distribution of selected species. Changes in status of threatened species are slow due to inadequate activities to address them. There are emerging concerns in water quality and nitrogen deposition in aquatic ecosystems. The fragmentation of ecosystems is another concern. However, the biodiversity corridor approach has been applied in some key ecosystems. This needs to be expanded and replicated in other key biodiversity areas. The trends in invasive alien species are critical. Despite notable initiatives of several ASEAN member states, these efforts are deemed insufficient given the potential magnitude of impacts of invasive alien species. There is very limited information about the status and condition, as well as the absence of monitoring protocols. Conservation is slowly influencing the agriculture industry of the region through sustainable agriculture, forest management, and organic farming practices. However, the area coverage of these practices is still insignificant to make an impact. There is an alarmingly rapid increase in the ecological footprint of the region due to shifting consumption patterns, resulting from rising income and shifting demographic distribution. Countries are taking efforts to preserve traditional knowledge and practices on conservation by indigenous peoples. National access and benefits sharing frameworks are being developed and capacity building activities are being conducted among ASEAN member states. In compliance with the Convention on Biological Diversity requirements, official development assistance funds have been increasing in the region for the past 5 to 10 years. Waging war against biodiversity loss is a gigantic effort that needs everyone's support. By taking action now, you can help conserve biodiversity and save humanity. Share your expertise and be part of ACB's pool of biodiversity resource persons. Conduct joint research and partner with ACB's various programs on conservation and advocacy. Be a member of ACB's Friends of Biodiversity. Help promote public awareness on the values of biodiversity. Support implementation of policies for biodiversity conservation. Donate to the ASEAN Biodiversity Fund. New approaches to conservation, both inside and beyond boundaries of designated protected areas, will have to be pursued. The connectivity of habitats within river basins to provide adaptive mobility for keystone species to respond to adverse changes in the environment needs to be maintained. Stress on the region's coral ecosystems needs to be mitigated through reduction of coastal pollution, rehabilitation, protection, and conservation of critical coastal ecosystems. Targeting efforts to critical areas and ecosystems. Mainstreaming biodiversity in the national development process. Connecting biodiversity management with climate change initiative. Taking pride on the current efforts and building on them for designing future programs. Supporting efforts that will lead to the adoption of the access and benefit sharing regime in the region. The conservation of our region's rich biodiversity depends on our commitment. Let us all work together and act now to save our treasure and heritage for future generations to come.